Okay, it's 6 p.m. We'll go ahead and get our regular Schertz City Council meeting. Go ahead and call it to order. Today is March 17th, 2026. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come out this evening to join us here at the City Council meeting. We'll go ahead and open up with the opening prayer and pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States and the state of Texas by Councilwoman Hayward.
Let's bow. Father God, I want to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you for this city. Thank you for the people. Thank you for our staff who worked hard every day to try to make the city run as smooth as it can. Thank you for the folks that are sitting here tonight. Thank you for those that are at home who are counting on us to do the right thing by them. Lord, I want to thank you for bringing us all here safely tonight. And as we make decisions tonight about the business in front of us, the parks, the trails, the flood protection, the finances, help us to remember that every decision we make impacts someone's family. Help us to never forget that. And Father, tomorrow early voting begins across this city. I know people are tired. Lord, I know that we've had a long election season, and I understand that voter fatigue is real. But I pray right now that you would prick their hearts, the people of Schertz, to remind them that this election matters, that showing up matters, that their voice matters, and move them to get out to vote. I pray that the right person gets elected, not someone chasing a title, looking for power, not someone serving a personal grudge, not someone who says one thing and does another, but someone who genuinely loves and cares for this city, the community, and wants to serve it with truth and grace. Someone who will make Schertz the place we all call home better for our future as we move forward toward it. Lord, I have seen what division does, and I'm really tired of it. And I pray that we have a leader that will bring people together, who will listen before they speak, and who will remember that the work is about the people and not about themselves. Because we know what things need to happen in the city. And we're not to be removed from this community, that we are part of it. And keep us that way. Keep us humble and keep us close. Now let us make the right decisions tonight and pray that we all make it safely home. I ask these blessings in your son's name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you for that, Councilwoman Hayward. So we do have a special announcement, the Hal Baldwin Scholarship. Students attending for the Hal Baldwin Scholarship need to sign in on the sheet located in the back of the podium. If you're watching remotely, please email Sarah Gonzalez at sgonzalez@schertz.com to virtually sign in. Please direct any questions to Ms. Gonzalez. We'll go ahead and move on to presentations. Quarterly financials, first quarter 2025. James?
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is James Walters. I'm the Finance Director here for the City of Schertz. Bring up our presentation. Give you an update on how we're coming along in the first quarter of 25-26 fiscal year. So for the revenue for the general fund, the majority of the revenue we actually get in December and January usually. This is when the property taxes start to come in. They make up a good portion of the general fund revenue. The rest of the revenue can come in a little bit more variable throughout the year. Sales tax follows a pattern, which we'll see in a second, while other revenues are a little bit more contingent on project schedules, and we'll see with those as well. I will say, we'll move over to the expenses. Expenses, we look at a more flat, even for the most part, sort of average. We'll see a little dip in December's usually. Everyone goes on vacation. There's not a lot of much dirt moving, much of the project's going along. This last year, we saw a little bit more in August as we were wrapping up some other capital projects. But as you can see, we're pretty close to where we expect in the budget with that blue line following where we are expecting. So ad valorem tax revenue, this is what I wanted to show you as well. This is just the property taxes, and you can see that we expected to get, or this is what we've got the past 3 years. So 2 years ago, last year, and then the current year. Now it looks like we're way far behind, but guess what? January, when I come back to you next time, is going to be so far off the chart, it's going to make it look much smaller. But due to how the dates fell, a lot of the escrows pay on the very last day of December, and that kind of means that the payments arrived in our bank account 2 days later after they make the payment, because at first it goes to the tax assessor collector, and then they turn around and forward it on to us. So a lot of payments actually wound up in our bank account in January this year, just due to how the dates fell. So you'll see a very large January and a little bit larger February than normal. Rest assured that we are still on target for our revenues overall for the general fund. And that'll be a restatement I make when I come back to you with the next quarter. So I just didn't want you to panic when you saw like, oh, we're not getting anything in. No, it did come in. It just came in 1 day later into the January timeframe. Sales taxes, we've sent out a memo on the sales taxes. This is another graph showing just kind of the overall impact of what actually is happening here. So you see around March last year, this gray area is when we started receiving some one-time or very large sales taxes. We thought, oh yeah, one-time sales taxes is something that we do get from now and then, usually related to construction projects. Because whenever a construction project comes in, whatever area the construction project happens generates that sales tax, and that community gets those sales taxes. So we thought, man, we just got really lucky. This is great. We didn't really realize that there was a big construction project going on, but maybe we missed something, or maybe it just delayed and this is where it kicked off. Until we started seeing those high payments start to come back a little bit more regularly a couple months later, and has so far continued into the 25-26 time frame. And we did speak to the companies involved, and we've confirmed this is a limited time sales tax increase. They've confirmed that this will go away around the second quarter of this year. So this will still be good for us. It'll be a good boon and lucky for the city to get, but it will die back down to our normal levels by the end of this year. So a little bit more on sales taxes because it's having such a big impact on us both last year and so far the first quarter of this year. So sales taxes are collected by companies and are submitted to the state, either monthly or quarterly. They have that option. Then the state distributes that to cities and counties the month following the submission. So if they make sales in January, they submit that to the state in February, who then turns around and gives it to us in March. So it's like a 2-month delay when the sales are actually generated versus when we get them. Due to privacy laws, only the city manager or his specific designee can request to see the full list of sales taxpayers, and we can only use that data for auditing and for fiscal forecasting. So we can't share that data in any way that could single out a specific company with the amount that they're paying. That's about the only kind of rule. You can parse it different ways. You can look at top 50, but there's kind of a gray area of what much detail is actually allowable, but we don't want to go a little bit too far. So we do, when we approach sales taxes, we'll look at industry. We can look at zones, we can look at top 50. Those are usually the ones that are paying us the most, or the top 10. So we've engaged with ZacTax, who's been gaining market share with the cities. This company compiles and verifies sales tax data on behalf of the city of Schertz. They have a robust platform that lets staff review sales tax locations easily each month and ensure the state is allocating the taxes correctly. So that could be an issue. There's a whole issue with the zip codes and how they don't actually align with cities exactly. So it could be a majority, but you can have a 78108 zip code, you could be in Schertz. It's usually a big Selma population. And so if you're looking at the wrong way, the address on a store could be New Braunfels. And so they could get the sales tax initially because hey, I think I'm in New Braunfels. My address says New Braunfels. And so that's kind of up to us to go on, oh, no, that's actually ours. See, it's in our boundary. We can make those requests to the state. They can do an audit. They can turn around and they can fix those taxes for us and start allocating them to us. So this is a chart from Zach Tax showing sort of the distribution in Schertz of where the sales tax are being generated from. This is I-35 and 3009. You see we have a big retail center there. So that's where a lot of and then the industrial park. And you'll see out south, we have some more businesses out over here. So this is helpful to track businesses and their location in Schertz. But not all sales tax contributors actually we receive actually come from businesses that have a physical location. So like online sales or construction material purchases I mentioned before. So online sales are becoming bigger and bigger, especially after COVID, which don't have a physical address. So it's much harder to determine how much Schertz should actually get because the only people that actually have that data are the companies that are taking the sales. For construction generated sales tax, staff looks at building permits to determine if we are receiving applicable taxes. So we see, like, hey, we're doing this big old permit. Where are those construction? We can follow up with that with Zach Tax as well as the state to say, hey, we're seeing this project. Where is it? And they can do an audit on our behalf and turn around and correct that. So if the audit is successful, if in case y'all are curious, they say, yeah, those are actually yours. They can actually go back 4 years and take that money from the city that actually was receiving it and turn around and giving it to us. So if you look at the sales tax allocation that's on the state website, sometimes you'll see audit adjustments. And that's the state making changes between communities going, hey, we actually gave you them. It belongs to this people over here. We have just a limited view of that data. That is something that can and does happen whenever something gets caught. Permits is another one I wanted to touch on real quick. As you can see, permits can vary wildly from year to year time period. Going as far as, I guess December is fairly consistent. Not a lot of construction going on in December. And then we see a little bit higher time frames over in the spring as construction gets off. Commercial permits are usually the ones that are causing this big gray last year that come through, cause big spikes overall in the permits. It makes it very hard to anticipate when those projects go through. We know a big project's coming. We don't know when they'll be ready to submit and pay the permit, or if they're going to pull out entirely and decide to not go through with the project. So we have just a very general idea of when we can expect those, but we try not to count our eggs before they hatch in case it falls into another fiscal year or if they decide to pull out, as I mentioned. Franchises, these are generally very steady. These are companies like water systems or telecom or the power companies that use our right-of-way, and usually basically the power lines to provide services. So they have to pay us in lieu of going out for a permit every time they want to go into our right-of-ways. Moving on to the water and sewer revenue. Their revenue is fairly consistent throughout the year. You may see a little spikes up here in the grays over in June time frame when people start watering their lawns more before they hear San Antonio starts putting water restrictions in. Again, City of Schertz does not put water restrictions, but they hear that in San Antonio and they think, oh no, I got to turn back. So that's where that kind of comes from. Get a little more granular detail just on the water side. We'll see a little bit over in October, November. It dies off whenever we start doing sewer averaging, as well as during the winter months, and then comes back during the summer to people start watering the yards. So far, we're generating more revenue than we were this time last year. Sewer revenue comes in. We make updates in April and updates in October versus the rates. Now this is zoomed in quite a bit, so it looks like some high increases, but we're already starting at the 740,000 to 900,000, as opposed to like back here we're starting at 0. So this is just a zoomed in version showing that we do have some increases, and those are the 2 times we usually have increases in, whenever we do our sewer averaging, and then again when our rates change. But overall, they should be fairly consistent. Any changes would be to corporate customers. On the garbage revenue, you'll see our garbage revenue is a little bit low this year, and then it dropped off right around July, August. So we did change our contract terms with our new garbage provider. They are handling all of the commercial billing. So before we would handle commercial billing, we'd be collecting those revenues, and then once we engaged with the new provider, they took that over, and so you see that drop off. So now you're seeing just residential. So they're on target, they're hitting what we expect, but that's the reason the chart looks different. Over in the drainage fund, so this is the coming a little bit lower in the first part of our drainage fees, but we're coming back in December. These fees will be very consistent going forward. These fees are set based on both the residential side or a commercial side based on the impervious surface coverage and don't fluctuate. So as far as drainage fund expenditures, again, we had some capital purchases towards the end of the year. Otherwise, we're trending just a little bit below budget, and we'll probably see some more capital purchases come in, or high dollar expenses come in during the summer and towards the end of the year as well. EMS revenue is another one that can vary quite a bit depending on how many call volume. And then you'll see every 3 quarters the revenue jumps. That's when we send out the invoices to other communities in the interlocal agreement portion to cover those areas. As far as EDC, the primary source of EDC funds are sales taxes, just like the city of Schertz. So their chart on their revenue matches very close to what the sales taxes are doing. So again, they started seeing the high jumps in March, and they're seeing those high dollar amounts until that sales tax payers make some changes, and then those will fall off at the second quarter back to the average. So also in our report, we have our investments. So majority of our city of Schertz investments are investment pools, which are like money market mutual funds, but just for local governments, and they're sponsored and verified by the state of Texas. We have just a little bit, 3% in cash at the time to make our payments. We're actually increasing our CD portfolio. We know the rates were starting to drop, so we started to leverage out a little bit more CDs to remain at a higher yield for a little bit longer. And then we have Hancock Whitney, which has our trade agencies and treasuries, only about 1% there. We're going to be transitioning into our own, probably more of those here shortly, depending on what the Fed decides to do with some rates in the future. Investment pools have been very good, as you can see in a moment. So starting about January of this last year, this is 1 year's worth. Our portfolio is beating the 3-month T-bill, which we kind of use as a benchmark. Earning about 4.51 and over 4% until the very December. The 3-month T-bill dropped a little bit to 3.67. But except for this one little section, in July and August, we have beaten our general benchmark for a return. All right. Are there any questions over the city of Schertz revenues, expenses, or what's in the report for our sales taxes, or how our revenues come in?
I have no questions. Any of the council members have any questions? Thank you very much for your report. Next presentation, we have the fiscal year 2025 Parks and Recreation Annual Report. Lauren?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mr. Williams. I'm Lauren Schrum, Director of Parks and Recreation. Oops. Let's see here. There we go. So tonight, just wanted to present to you our FY 24-25 annual report for Parks and Recreation here in Schertz, and we gave you a copy there on your desk. We like to summarize the year and show the community the impact we have on quality of life in Schertz. So just some quick highlights I want to review with you. A little bit of a highlight reel here of all of our photos from our different events and the team and the projects. We have 21 full-time staff, 2 part-time staff, 2 seasonal staff, and over 200 volunteers that help make our programs possible here in Schertz, and our leadership team. As you know, when we presented our gold medal award a couple weeks ago, we have a lot of staff heavily involved in professional development in the state association, the national association. We're getting our folks trained, that we're getting their certifications, and really focused on building the Schertz brand, doing classroom presentations in elementary schools. So we're all out in the community making a difference for Schertz. Just highlighting the different boards and committees and different community groups that we meet with and engage with on a regular basis to help make Parks and Recreation possible in the city. Some highlights of what we do. Again, we have 27 parks, 1,131 civic and community center bookings. We've got our 46 different events. We partner with 18 different organizations to put on events and programs, 12 different sponsors, 25.6 miles of hike and bike trails, 36 playscape units. Our picnic and pavilion areas, we've got 12 of those, 457 acres of parkland across the system that we're maintaining. Some year-end numbers, we just track the data to show how we're doing. In the health of our parks and our programs. One thing to note here, we had an uptick in large pavilion rentals at Pickerel Park, 283 from 158, so we're seeing a lot of demand there for more people renting that space for parties and such. And then another one I wanted to note was the Wendy Swan Pavilion. When we renovated and opened the splash pad and opened the bathroom up year-round, we now have an uptick there in rentals. People now want to have their party there. There's something there to do, and there's a restroom available. So it went from 2 to 45. And then we added capacity there under the restroom awning. It's a secondary pavilion. So we went from not having that to 10 rentals. So that's a need that keeps coming up to in our Parks Master Plan, more picnic pavilions. So we've added that. 20,000 people at our events, a little bit down from last year. We had a rainy 4th of July this year, so we saw a little bit of a downtick in attendance, but still 20,000 people out there in our programs. 51,750 in sponsorship dollars. There's some Civic Center rental numbers, still having an uptick at our pool. Visits, 20,000, up from 18 the year prior. Admissions and season passes are going up. Youth sports, still strong, looking good. We have 2,200 kids in BVYA, up from the last fiscal year. And then we have 1993 in soccer with SISA. Volunteer hours are still strong, and scan-ins at the senior center and all are still very, very strong. Budget expenses, our budget was 4.488. We came in at 4.296, and this just breaks it down by fund. The vast majority of the funding is to park operations and personnel. Revenues there, Parks and Rec fees, Civic Center fees, the different funds where we collect fees. Some of our top highlights, we launched some things that were in our Parks Master Plan that came out of the community survey. Residents wanted to see more farmers market type events, so we launched our Schertz Hometown Harvest. That's been successful. The Power Wheels Derby and the Cardboard Boat Regatta, different events that replace some older ones that we'd had for many years. They've done very well. Together We Play, an inclusive event that we started with the library. We named Hilltop Park last year. We transferred our North Center Community Center rentals to an online platform so people could reserve them more easily. We planned the transition of the senior center to city-run operations. That's going very well. Obviously, we'll report on that in next fiscal year's report. We adopted our post-master plan last fiscal year. We chaired the Texas Recreation and Parks Society Central Region Workshop Planning Committee. We held it here. It was very successful. We enhanced the Schertz Soccer Complex through the installation of the new LED lighting, the public art addition of the new mural. We updated the Veterans Memorial Plaza with the addition of the Purple Heart, Gold Star families, and the Space Force plaques. We upgraded 13 restrooms throughout the park system with new epoxy flooring, and we converted all the lighting in the Civic Center to LED for better energy efficiency. And then we participated in a lot of Texas Recreation and Park Association initiatives. We walked the halls at the Capitol and held a play day out on the lawn to talk to legislators about Parks and Recreation. Again, we had an unusually rainy season for events, so we keep note of that. Parks maintenance crew had their maintenance morning. We had 80 professionals here that we hosted for a playground safety course. We had our biggest summer last summer with Parks and Rec Month attendance and events, and we had our first summer intern who really helped elevate our social media presence and increased our community engagement online. And then there's just a few highlight reels again of our events in the community. So I just wanted to update you with that impact report. And that's it. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. I have no questions. Any council members have any questions? Okay, Councilmember Westbrook?
Hey, good job. Thank you very much. I think you have a great array of offerings. I've even taken advantage of one of them recently. But are y'all operating at a deficit or not? When was the last time y'all raised fees?
Yes, so we actually raised fees slightly with the Civic Center this past fiscal year.
Okay.
But yes, we are operating at a deficit overall.
Overall?
Yes, we don't have like a cost recovery model yet that hasn't been the direction of council in the past. We could discuss that in the future if that's the route council wants to go.
Thank you.
Councilmember Guerrero?
Yeah, I want to make a comment about the volunteers. And it's not just the volunteers in Parks and Rec. The volunteers, they may be in the, working with the first responders, the library, YMCA, wherever we have volunteers. We need to ensure that the volunteers are acknowledged, appreciated, and thanked.
Absolutely.
Every single time that they come out here. They're out here for a purpose. They love our city. They love the department that they're volunteering. So we need to acknowledge them, appreciate them, and thank them every single time they come out.
Yep, I agree.
Thank you.
I agree with that. I don't see where we have any other comments. Thank you very much for your presentation. Moving on to city events and announcements. Sarah?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The right page in front of me. All right, so a couple of things and a couple of the parks events that Lauren had mentioned. So on Friday, March 20th, will be a partnership with the YMCA for the Easter Extravaganza, and that'll be at the Schertz Aquatic Centers. There's 3 different sessions, so if you go online, you can sign up for the session that works for you. On Sunday, March 22nd, the Power Wheels Derby that she spoke of will be taking place from 2 to 5 at the Community Circle Drive. On Sunday, March 22nd, there will be a nature scavenger hunt from 3:30 to 4:30 at Crescent Bend Nature Park. Friday, March 27th, will be the pre-budget retreat for council. It'll start at 8:30 a.m. in council chambers. Also, I apologize, let me skip back to this coming Saturday. Will be Clean the Creek event, and that'll be 8:30 a.m. to 11:30. Again, information is on our website if you'd like to sign up to volunteer for that. On Saturday, April 4th, will be the Schertz Hometown Harvest from 9 to 1 p.m. at Pickerel Park. And then finally, just to touch on first day of early voting is going to be tomorrow. We'll go through March 31st, and Election Day is on April 4th. And it'll be for the City Council Place 6. And then we will be back here for our next regularly scheduled meeting on Tuesday, April 7th at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Announcements and recognitions by the city manager, Steve Williams.
I do not have any this week, Mayor. Thank you very much.
And I do not have any announcements or recognitions either. Moving on to hearing of residents. This time is set aside for any persons wishing to address City Council. Each person should fill out the speaker's register prior to the meeting. Presentation should be limited to no more than 3 minutes. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body and not to any individual member thereof. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks while addressing the council may be requested to leave the meeting. When you come up to speak, if you'll also state your name and give your address. Mayor Pro Tem Davis, do we have any residents wishing to speak?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have several tonight. First up is Maggie Titterington.
Good evening, Council. A few announcements from the Chamber. We're going to be supporting Schertz EDC and one of our newest members of the Chamber, Piatta Italian Street Foods grand opening on March 25th at 10:30 a.m. Very excited about that. Love my Italian food. So hopefully you all have that on your calendar to come out and support our Schertz EDC, our newest business in the area. March 27th is going to be an extremely busy day with something going on morning, noon, and evening. In the morning from 7:30 to 9 a.m. we have coffee at the Chamber. It's going to be hosted by Schertz Civil Emergency Clinic. Free coffee, free goodies, come in, come out, grab it to go before going into work. Again, that's 7:30 to 9 a.m. Then from 10 to 2 p.m., our Military Affairs Committee is doing a Veteran-Owned Business Expo. That is going to be located at Wayland Baptist University. They're partnering with them to give them the space that they need. They have room for 40 booths, and I believe there's only 7 left. It's free to the public to attend. We just want to support our veterans that own businesses in the area. If you are a veteran-owned business and want to have a booth there, like I said, there's about 9 booths left. Just contact the chamber. We'll get you hooked up with who you need to be hooked up with. And then we have a ribbon cutting at 4 p.m. that evening for Schertz Creek Beer Garden. They've been open for about a year now, but they never had like an official ribbon cutting and celebration, so we're doing that for them at 4 p.m. on the 27th. The 28th, the next day, we are having our shred day at the Schertz offices, 1730 Schertz Parkway. That is from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Our Young Professionals Hyper is putting it on. It is free to bring your items to shred. We do ask for a suggested donation of $5 because we are doing a fundraiser for jointly Big Brothers and Big Sisters. And then the other 50% goes to giving holiday meals and presents from RACAP for families in our surrounding area. Last, we are closed on April 3rd for Good Friday, and that is all I have. Thank you.
Next up is Tiffany Gibson.
Tiffany Gibson, 6939 Halley Loop, Schertz, Texas, 78154. Good evening, council, mayor, staff. Thank you for having me this evening. I am grateful to come here and ask for the opportunity to run for Schertz City Council Place 6. I'm one of the only candidates that have prior experience, and I will continue to run on the priorities of ensuring that we support our law enforcement, as well as protecting our small town values, and as well as fiscal responsibility for our taxpayer dollars, as I did before and as I will continue to do in the future. It is a pleasure to be a resident here and also to continue to serve this community. Thank you.
Next, we have Raquel Gutierrez.
Good evening, all. Council, Mayor, Schertz neighbors, city staff. My name is Raquel. I live at 1016 Silver Tree, and I wanted to share with you this evening what I've been doing over the past few weeks. I spend a lot of time walking our neighborhoods, going door to door and standing on front of porches, engaging with residents. And I'll tell you, when you're face to face, having real conversations, you learn what people are really concerned about. Not just the easy conversations, but the tough questions, the real concerns about Schertz. Last Thursday in particular, I engaged with a homeowner. He looked me in the eye and asked me very directly, "And what are you going to do to make sure our streets are safe?" Then he followed up with something that really stayed with me. Why are residents having to ask for the basic services to be delivered? I could tell he said that out of concern. Was he referring to lack of accountability? He was concerned for his neighborhood, for his family, for the community he calls home. He talked about wanting to see increased police presence, wanting reassurance that someone is there watching, responding, and protecting our neighborhoods. But allow me to be clear, I fully support our law enforcers, first responders, because they show up for our community every single day, and they deserve our full respect and our 100% support. Leadership has a responsibility as well. City leaders. Because at the end of the day, city leaders and the residents, the taxpayers, should be the top priority. And what I'm hearing residents say at their front door goes beyond just one issue. Residents want to feel secure in their daily lives. They want to know when they leave their home, it will be safe and protected upon their return. They want the streets they drive on maintained and safe. They want to know there has been responsible planning for future growth. They want to know that they can continue living in the community they love without being priced out with tax increases. Residents want to be assured that city leaders are being good stewards of taxpayers' dollars, not just making decisions from behind a desk, but showing up, being immersed, and understanding what's really happening in the community. I've walked our neighborhoods. I've heard the same concerns come up again and again. These are not complaints. They are real resident concerns. Residents are paying attention. They expect accountability in basic services. Things like safe streets, visible police presence, reliable infrastructure, and responsible use of taxpayer dollars should always be a top priority. And because leadership begins with listening, which I see Councilwoman is not listening, I have stood at those front porches, I've gone door to door, and I'm ready to show up and represent Schertz residents. Early voting starts tomorrow. Make a plan, show up, and vote once more because Schertz needs your vote. Thank you.
Next up, we have Michelle Terletsky speaking for Dana Eldridge at 2628 Gallant Fox.
Mayor, Council, Mr. Williams, Mr. Santee. Dana Eldridge asked me to read this statement that he has written. He, unfortunately, at the last minute couldn't be here, and I said I would be glad to. From Dana Eldridge, I commend Allison Hayward for her time on council. 3 elections with 70% or more of the vote. How that dropped to 40% during the election for county commissioner is still questionable. Maybe due to false statements about her owing money to the city, question mark. It seems that same individual is continuing to make false statements about other candidates. Do we want this kind of, quote, leadership, unquote, to be part of our council / community, question mark. The division needs to stop now, capital N-O-W. It has been going strong since Mayor Rodriguez was voted in. Citizens of Schertz are not enemies of the city, nor are we terrorists of the city. Stop the rhetoric. Dana Eldridge, 2628 Gallant Fox, Schertz. I believe I'm up next, correct?
Yes, next up is Michelle Terletsky.
I'm changing the subject completely on y'all, and you're gonna love this. I'm wishing you a happy anniversary, at least 4 of you. And as one councilman used to post comments on social media, let's talk trash. I always found that quite appropriate, that council person would want to talk trash. On 28 March 2025, an announcement was posted to the city website of contract award to Frontier Waste Management. On the 30th of March 2025, the Chamber of Commerce announced on their website that Frontier Management made a donation to the Chamber. On 1 April 2025, which was April Fool's Day, Council was asked to choose between 2 options for services for the contract. During the Council Citizens to be Heard portion, 3 individuals spoke about the contract and considerations. I and a friend discussed the bulky bins and how they would be difficult for some citizens. We were told there were no options for smaller bins. That may have been because there was an RFP written from a contractor to the contractor stating that 96-gallon bins would be what they wanted. Maybe that was because of the consulting contractor that we paid $39,000 to. Don't know. The other citizen stated she would have no problem with the bins. She spoke as a citizen, but has a direct relationship to the Chamber of Commerce. According to her statement, all the citizens have to do is store the bins in their garage, then roll out the bin down the driveway on trash day. Well, let's discuss that. In my area, in the area where this individual grew up, not all residents have concrete driveways. Not all residents have garages. Because at the time the houses were built, they didn't produce them. Okay? Those of us who do have garages couldn't get a car in there if our life depended on it. I got one in one time, was able to get out, but had to go out the side door, go around the front to get in my house. Why? Because vehicles are a lot larger now than they were, are a lot larger than they were then. I bet you some of you don't even know that there's several streets that don't have sidewalks in addition to concrete driveways. What's odd is at least two, if not more, one side of that street has a sidewalk and the direct opposite side doesn't have a sidewalk. Those houses have been there for at least 49, 50 years. I'll quit, but I will have a sequel to this, guaranteed. Thank you, sir.
Next up, we have Heather Korn. And for last, we have Jonathan Marquez.
Jonathan Marquez, 5817 Schertz, St. Andrews. Today I come to council with mixed feelings. For one, I'm excited about the opportunity to serve the city of Schertz on the TSAC and Parks Recreations Board. Yet on the other hand, I'm disheartened, I'm concerned, and quite frankly, I'm offended at the lack of knowledge and attention to detail from a certain council member of this in regards to the incomplete sidewalks at Danville Middle School. So allow me to reiterate to the new members of the council and to the incoherent members of the council. Danville Middle School is technically in Schertz. They have sidewalks on their property line, and then it goes into rural area where there's incomplete sidewalks. Then you get to the bank. Bank has somewhat of sidewalks, and then there's sidewalks all the way down to the Crown Jewel, North Cliff. Sidewalks on rural lands. All I asked is that the city complete those sidewalks on either side. TSAC board, they went and observed it. They did the analysis. Brian tells me that there's going to be a business possibly coming on the elementary school. That's fine. That's good. I can wait. But can we fill in the other side of the sidewalk? Now, I get it. I've personally rode on dirt roads, ground. It doesn't matter. But this is not Von Army. This is not Pleasanton. This is not Floresville. This is Schertz. We have the money to make it right. And when it's kids involved and the safety of children, we have to do what's right. So I'm here again to reiterate to new members of the council and members of the council that were not paying attention. Please build the sidewalks, and I'm happy to be here, happy to serve, but I just want to reiterate it because I said I would, and I do what I say. Thank you. Have a good day.
Mr. Mayor, that's all for tonight.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda items. The consent agenda is considered self-explanatory and will be enacted by the council with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless they are removed from the consent agenda upon request of the mayor or a council member. Council members, is there any items that you'd like to remove from the consent agenda?
Yes, 1 and 2.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and remove consent agenda items 1 and 2. Can I get a motion to approve consent agenda items 3 through 5?
So moved.
All right, we have a Motion made by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Councilmember Westbrook. Can I get everybody to cast their votes? Can I get the votes published, please? Okay, having 7 yeas, no nays, motion passes. Now moving on to consent agenda item 1.
Mayor, I remove that because there needs to be a correction on the agenda under the, I think it's the city, under city events and announcements. It needs to be corrected that Steve Williams is the TCMA president, not the TML president.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that Sarah Gonzalez is a TCMA board member as well, not TML. Thank you. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve item number 1.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. With those corrections, I have a motion to approve the minutes by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Councilmember Watson. Can I get everybody to cast their votes? All right, having 7 yeas, no nays, motion passes. Moving on to item 2, appointments and reappointments and resignations by City of Schertz boards, commissions, and committees appointments.
So I pulled this one, Mayor, because we have a few of the recommended board members that we're presenting to the city, and they're in the audience, and I wanted everyone to be able to recognize them. So on the Capital Improvement Advisory Board, we have Alicia Sherman. Please stand. We have on the Parks and Recs, Jonathan Marquez. We have Parks and Recs alternate. So he was alternate 1, alternate 2 will be Michelle Frey. We have on the Planning and Zoning, Sean Grady as an alternate. We have on TSAC, Jay Starr and Jonathan Marquez. I hope I did not miss anyone. Sonia. Sorry about that. I was looking at it and I was like, I couldn't hardly see you. And then we also have Sonia Laredo Reyes, who is on the Planning and Zoning as an alternate 1. Please stand. Thank you. So I just wanted everyone to meet them as we go through, because a lot of times we tend to, as the interview committee, we put people on boards and then we don't know who they are. So they wanted to come and I wanted to recognize them. So with that, I'd like to make the approval of all of the appointments, reappointments, and resignations. I'd like to make the motion for that, please.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Councilmember Guerrero. Can I get council to cast their votes?
And again, Sonia, I apologize.
Can I get the votes published, please? Okay, having 7 yeas, no nays, motion passes.
So I want to thank you guys for coming in and being recognized in front of City Council and putting in your application to serve on these boards. We know that you're going to do great things, and we look forward to hearing and the things that you have to say. So thank you again for coming in, and congratulations.
Thank you all very much for volunteering and serving on those boards. I know it requires a lot of time, and so thank you for taking time out of your day, your schedule, and your families to be able to do that. So thank y'all very much. All right, moving on to discussion and action items. Item 6, Resolution 26-R-038, authorizing an advanced funding agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation for the West Deach Creek Trail Project. We have Lauren Shroom.
Good evening again, Council. I don't have a formal presentation tonight. Just wanted to bring this item to your attention. You had previously approved the design services for this project for the West Deach Creek Trail. This is what was presented in the CCM for the total project cost has increased from 1.3 1.354 to 1.603. So we wanted to note that when we originally applied for this funding, we thought that professional services were also reimbursed by TxDOT. They are not in this program call. They were in a previous one we had done, but we got a little bit mixed up. And so this design cost is going to be borne solely by the city, but then the construction portion will be reimbursable from TxDOT. So you have the totals there. Wanted to bring that to your attention. And then the funding sources, we already had some general fund dollars allocated for this project, and then we are covering the remaining $247,000 from the Parkland Dedication Fund, which we do have reserves in there of over $635,000. That's it. I'll answer any questions if you have them.
So Mayor, I'm going to make one comment, but so Lauren, we're still leveraging our 600,000 versus
Absolutely.
the state's $1 million grant.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, any council members have any questions? Okay, can I get a motion to approve resolution 26-R-038?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion made by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Councilmember Westbrook. Can I get council to cast your votes? Okay, can I get the votes published, please? Okay, having 7 yeas, no nays, motion passes. Moving on to item 7, resolution 26-R-044. Approval of the annual comprehensive financial report, fiscal year 2024-2025. Mr. Walters.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This year, we engaged with a new audit firm, ABIP. Here from their firm, we have Jeremy, who will go over the highlights of the annual financial report, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. The audit committee did meet last Tuesday and review the book in more complete manner than we plan to do tonight, but we'll still happy to answer any questions that you have. The audit committee did recommend approval to council tonight for the annual report. So I'll introduce Jeremy, who will go over the financial report.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for having me here today. As James mentioned, my name is Jeremy Barbato. I'm an audit partner here at ABIP. I oversaw the audit of the city's financial statements. With the help of management, we got here today as required by the state mandate. I think most of y'all are aware the state put some teeth behind getting these audits filed with the city secretary by the 180th day after the fiscal year end. There is also a 6-month requirement, which is a little longer, to get submitted to GFOA, which y'all have done. And so we're here before you today to present the financial statements and meet all those deadlines. But I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, this presentation is going to be more high level, but I'm happy to answer any questions on the audit process or in any of the items that are in your book that we passed out earlier today. Oh, and the book we passed out, it didn't differ from the agenda packet item that y'all got last week. So, real quick, just a high overview of what's in the bound document here that you have, this real thick, good reading material for tonight, help put you to sleep. What's in the ACFR is the introductory section. That is the transmittal letter from the city manager. That's pretty much a profile of what the city has going on and what the city plans on going in the future, the economic impacts that the city faces, as well as the capital and debt administration that the city has on the financials itself. And it gives a little more information on how the budget gets adopted every year. Also in the introductory section is the GFOA, which is the Government Financing Officer Association Certificate of Achievement Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2024. Now that's the prior year. It's required to be put into the submission offer for GFOA for the 2025 fiscal year. And this will be the 39th year that y'all will receive that award consecutively. We've gone through the checklist for GFOA that they've provided, and so we don't doubt that y'all will hit the September 30th, 2025 award for achievement. Also in the annual financial report is is the independent auditor's report. That's our report explaining what the scope of services we provided to the city, as well as the responsibilities over the financial statements themselves, which lies with management. Then it gives the management discussion and analysis, which gives the financial highlights of the city, what happened during the year, as well as a comparative outlook as a city as a whole. And it kind of analyzes the city's financial funds, major funds that the city has. Then you get into the basic financial statements, which is your government-wide and fund financial statements. That's where you see all the balances for the fiscal year. And I'll go over some of those in a little bit. Then you have the notes to the financial statements. There's a lot in this document, I know. The notes to the financial statements, which gives a little more meat behind behind the bones of the financial statements, balances themselves, gives a little more detail on what's happening with the balances and how the balances consist of and what makes it up. Then there's some supplementary information that's required by our standards to some budget schedules that we have to present, as well as your combining individual financial statements, which are your non-major funds that the city manages. Finally, this is exclusive to ACFRS, is the statistical section, and this gives a 10-year look back on how the city has progressed over the last 10 years in various aspects, such as tax assessed value, median income of the city, some demographics, usage of your utility systems, sales tax payers, like your highest sales tax payers, stuff like that. So it gives a little more detail behind how the city's progressed over the last 10 years. Some interesting stuff in there. Then finally, we have the compliance section, which is required this year because y'all had federal funds. Y'all exceeded the $1 million cap that's required us to do a single audit for the city, and that's related to your ARP funds that y'all got. So again, just to go over our independent auditor's report over the financial statements, we did follow certain auditing standards, the generally accepted auditing standards of the United States, as well as the government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. Those are the standards we had to follow in accordance with the city's financials. The purpose of our audit is to form an opinion, an independent opinion, over the financial statements and whether they're in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles of the United States. And our opinion is unmodified, which is basically states that we have no modifying statements and no departures from generally accepted accounting principles. This is the highest opinion. It's called a clean opinion that you can have from an independent accounting firm. Basically states we have no modifying statements in your opinion, or in our opinion, of your financial statements as they are presented in front of you today. Again, the management discussion analysis, it's broken up into these components. I'll cover more on the financial highlights, but if you ever turn to the management discussion, it gives you a good overview of how the city did from prior year to this year, and those are the segments of the management discussion analysis. Jumping into some financial highlights, government-wide financials, I won't cover too much of these because it's all your funds consolidated into one opinion unit. I'll cover more on the fund level in a little bit. But just real quickly, the city reported a combined net position of $445 million. And it's broken up between your governmental activities of $231 and $213 in your business type activities. Those are all your enterprise funds consolidated together. And this is a required statement by our standards. So the net position did increase by $67.1 million from the prior year. Governmental activities took up 30.8 of that, and business type took up 36.3. As mentioned in James' presentation earlier, we did have an increase in sales tax dollars for the fiscal year. That made up a sizable chunk of the 30.8 in the governmental activities, as well as some capital contributions that made up about 18 million. So there's some development that got finished, and the city has taken on that infrastructure to maintain it. So we recorded that as revenue for the city. Also, on the business type activities, we did have an increase in charges for services. Those are customers. Either the customers have increased or the usage has increased, or a combination of the two, in the water and sewer fund. And then also some capital contributions for infrastructures that y'all have taken ownership over to maintain. That was about $33 million of capital infrastructure y'all took on. Going to the general fund, this is the budgets and where y'all are used to managing. Y'all did have 5 major funds. I'll cover the 3 more major funds, for lack of a better term. The general fund, the debt service, and the capital projects, those are your 3 big primary funds. You do have other funds, obviously, and they're presented in the financials, but I was just going to cover those 3 heavily used funds for my presentation here. So going with the general fund, this is your city's main operating fund. At the end of 2025, you did have a $24.4 million increase. $24.4 million fund balance. That's an increase of $6.5 million. Again, most of that is in your sales tax dollars. It does include a restatement of 1.9, some receivables that we had to, or some additional revenues that we should have recorded in the prior year, so that's included in that increase. But our unassigned fund balance is $17.8 million of that 24, so that is approximately 39% of general operating expenditures. And the goal for the city is to keep at least 26, so you're well north of that. So good budgeting and good maintenance of the city's fund balance there. Then I'd like to put kind of how the cash and cash equivalents of the city is of $19.6 million. That's what we're reporting at the end of the year. So of the $24.4 million in total fund balance, 19.6 is liquid, and y'all have access to that. So very healthy fund balance for the general fund. Total revenues were $53.6 million, and total expenditures were $47.9, and I'll cover the breakout of those on this slide. So here's where the total revenues for the fiscal year ended out. Sales taxes were your biggest portion of $22.5 million, and property taxes was next of $18.4. Property tax stayed pretty consistent from the prior year. Sales taxes had the biggest increase from the prior year. And then franchise taxes of $2.7 was the other large component. So of that, your tax base makes up about 82% of your revenue stream. So heavily reliant on the public dollars coming into the city to fund operations. Total expenditures, these are the functions that the buckets fell into of the expenditures. $24.7 million in the public safety, which is just about half of the city's operating expenditures, as well as 7.3 in general government and administrative of 6.2. Those are the big chunks. Next, real high level on the debt service fund, it did decrease about almost $800,000 to 1.2, and that's just restricted for ongoing debt obligations that the city has. So 1.2 million, so it's funded primarily by property tax dollars, your INS rate. Capital Projects Fund did increase $26.1 million from the prior year, and it's sitting at $67.6 million. Most of that is related to the new bond that y'all passed of $27.4 million in 2025. Capital outlay for the fiscal year was 7.9, so y'all are spending some of those bond reserves on projects that are allowed under those bond agreements. Finally, on the compliance section, these are the other 2 audit reports we issue. We have the internal control report over financial reporting and compliance on other matters recorded in accordance with government auditing standards, as well as the single audit opinion, which is the compliance on each major program on the audit we did in accordance with uniform guidance. We had no material weaknesses in internal controls or no control deficiencies or non-compliance noted in the financial statements during our audit. Also, we had no no internal control weaknesses or non-compliance related to the major program, which is ARP, during the fiscal year. And you had an unmodified opinion on the single audit as well. So overall, a clean year on the financial and compliance side. Next is our letter of conduct and audit. This is our required communication with you and let you know how the audit went. Accounting policies, we did have a new accounting implementation this year. It's GASB 101, which is compensated absences. Nothing the city could have done. It was in order to comply with the accounting standards, the city had to adopt this. Management prepared a new measurement of its compensated absences, and those are reflected in the financial statements you have in front of you. Again, accounting estimates and disclosures, and sensitive disclosures estimates are part of these financial statements, and we evaluate those, and they're comparable and consistent with the prior years. I will say one sensitive disclosure is note 3 related to the restatement of beginning balances. It's on page 66 of this document. We did have some, being the first year we came in as auditors, we started questioning things, and so we found some restatements. Some of it's related to the implementation of GASB 101, and that just requires a retroactive application. The other 2 were related to capital assets and receivables that we identified. We had no difficulties in performing the audit or material misstatements or disagreements with management. So if we had any of those, we'd have to be required to communicate that to you. Management has provided all representation for us to do our audit. So they've provided us everything we need to get us here today. And there were no consultations with independent auditors or other independent accountants. Those accountants would be required to communicate with us, and we didn't get any such communications. Finally, we did perform an audit over the city's investment practices and make sure that y'all were in compliance with the Public Funds Investment Act, which y'all were. So no unallowed investments, and investment officers are all up to date on their training, and the investment policy is in compliance with the act that y'all have in the city. With that, I'll take any questions or about the financial statements or the audit process or anything y'all have.
Okay, does council have any questions? Okay, Councilman Guerrero?
Yeah, I got a question. How long did it take to do this audit?
How long? Last week. No, when did we start? I think we started in November. We came out for 2 weeks, and then we came back in January for another 2 or 3 weeks, and then about 2 weeks. So all in all, probably about 2 months, 8 to 10 weeks, I would say, to kind of wrap up.
What was the cost for doing the audit?
55?
50 grand.
I'd have to look at the RFP again. I don't have that number on the top of my head, but yeah.
About 55,000.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Westbrook.
Yes, so the audit was basically about if we're compliant, right? GAAP compliant, controls are in place, and all the numbers are correct. That pretty much a brief summary of what an audit does.
Yes. So management manages the funds, the receipts coming in, the payables going out, the payroll going out, stuff like that. And as a part of an audit, we do a risk assessment over those policies, and we determine what area what stone to look into based off our risk assessment over those areas. So then we perform our procedures to validate not only the balances are correct, but also the controls that are in place are operating efficiently.
Yep. So we're talking about controls and compliance, but what does it not tell us? It doesn't tell us about revenues, deficit. Does it talk about deficit?
Actually, I've got some comments about that.
Okay.
Yeah. So the financial statements themselves show the revenues and expenditures, and our job is to make sure that those are in compliance with our standards.
So if you go back to can you go back to?
Do you mind if I make a
No,
couple
go
of
for it.
comments? Because I think I know where you're headed with
All
this. So, and I do just want to make a couple of comments. Great job to James and the team, Jessica, for putting together. These are our financial statements. These are the city's financial statements, and the external auditing firm comes in and audits our financial statements and the things that go behind how we operate. Fair, common lay way to say it. So they're presenting the results of that. So I do want to point about the actual financial statements, the annual comprehensive financial report, some key things. So the general fund being our largest fund and a lot of what people tend to look at. I think it's important. If you want to turn to page 26 in your book, this is something that I tend to look at when we're evaluating the financial statements in our position. And on page 26, you'll see the general fund in the far left column. If you go all the way down, you have revenues and expenditures, and then you go down to the net change in fund balance. So for the general fund, we had a $4.5 million increase in fund balance. And for those of you who maybe are in the audience who don't understand the terminology, the governmental accounting terminology for fund balance, which only applies to governmental funds like the general fund, it is essentially our savings account in our reserves. So you see the $4.5 million change plus that $1.9 million restatement. That's what bumps us from we effectively go from 17.9 million to 24.4 million in our general fund balance. Another page to look at, if you turn to page 71, it breaks down those revenues a little bit more, and it shows our original budget versus our final budget. And what the final budget is the amended version of our budget that's occurred over the years, over the fiscal year, excuse me. So you can see under the revenues, the final budget amounts $48.2 million, and we actually ended up receiving $53.5 million. That's almost $5.3 million over what we budgeted for revenues. And like it was mentioned during the presentation, most of that's in the taxes, because that's the sales tax that James mentioned in his quarterly update at the beginning of the meeting. But also, if you direct your attention to page 71, you can see under total expenditures, about the middle of that page, our amended budget was that $49.8 million, and we actually only spent $47.8. So it's about almost a $2 million under budget expenditure amount for those funds. But then you got to take into account the transfers. That's down there a little bit further. And you can see that we actually budgeted to transfer out 1.5 million, but we budgeted out a lot more than that. We budgeted to transfer out 28 million, transferred out 1.4 million. So we're a little bit higher there. And if you go down to the net change in fund balance, our budget said that we were going to draw down fund balance because we had excess fund balance, like you mentioned, right? We were going to draw it down according to our budget by 1.5 million, but we actually ended up increasing it by 4.5 million. So that takes us to bumps us up to that 24 million. It was mentioned during the presentation too, the statistical section, and I really like this because it shows the trends over time and really is a good indicator of your fiscal health long term. And I'll say when GASB put this into place, a lot of us moaned and groaned that we had to do it, but I really like having it now. So it's really nice.
It's hard to go back, yeah.
And so it gives you a 10-year look back. And if you go to page 116 and 117, it spans across both pages, but just kind of look there up at the top. You got the general fund, and you have 5 different categories of general fund balance. So being the most restrictive at the top and the least restrictive at the bottom. So you have non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. Unassigned is effectively your cash, right? Your blank check. You can do what you want. The other things, we've set those aside for certain things. So in the past, council has either by resolution or some other way, we've set aside money to do certain things. That's why it's assigned. And then committed means it's committed for a certain purpose. So it moves up the ladder, it's more restricted. So I just want to show you, in case it comes to your attention or there are comments made about our fund balance for the general fund, if you look at 2021, which is the 2021 fiscal year, to 2025, which is this most recent audited financial statements, you'll see that our unassigned fund balance has gone from $11.5 million to $17.78 million. So pretty significant growth in our savings and our reserves over that 5-year period of time. Also, and our expenditures have grown quite a bit also. And if you think about what type of organization we are a service-driven organization that is run by people, especially in the general fund. So if you were to look back and you were to look at why has the expenditure side grown so much, and you could look at page 120, well, I'm sorry, page 142 and 143, you look at the last 5 years, we've actually grown from 383 budgeted positions to 433 positions. So that's a significant investment in adding new positions to our budget. And a lot of these affected the general fund. And so anyways, that's why you would probably see a pretty dramatic increase in the amount of salary dollars we spend. And then lastly, I'll just say on page 120 and 121, it shows the growth in our revenue sources in the general fund. So if you look at the first two columns, you got property tax and sales tax. And since 2021 to 2025, you've seen in property tax, it's grown pretty significantly from 21.4 million to 27.7 million. And then sales tax has actually gone way higher than that, from 16.8 million to 33.9 million. So all that being said, thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate it, and thank you for giving me the liberty to expound on some of these things. I think that ACFR is a document that's really confusing to a lot of people because, you know, you can get caught up in the net position and going back and forth between full accrual and modified accrual, and I think that's what confuses people sometimes. But it does show, and the trend lines do show, that we're in a pretty good financial position. So anyway, thank you very much. I hope that answered your question.
Partially, but for laymen like myself, 3 questions, and I'm reading off a document that I received, so you can be yes or no. Is the city operating in a deficit?
No.
Is the city using reserves to fund operations?
No.
Has the city have the financial capacity for infrastructure and new services?
Yes. According to our capital improvement program that we have laid out, we have aligned the construction and the things that are on the list with what we anticipate to be the expected resources. If we do run into a situation, it's kind of like driving a ship, steering a ship, and you're looking 20, 30 years down the road. You're trying really hard to hit that, but if you see that you're off course, you correct it. And it's a slow correction, and you know, you make adjustments here and there to make sure you're still maintaining that course to the North Star. So that's what we're doing. If you look at the planning that we're doing with our budgets, we do a 5-year, multi-year forecast for our major funds like the general fund, and we also do a 5-year capital improvement program that details out expenditures over that capital improvement program, as well as what we anticipate in the next 5 years beyond that. So I would say no, and yes.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, was that directed to me or to the others?
Y'all answered it, it doesn't matter.
Better than I could have.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Mayor, I appreciate it.
Okay, Councilmember Hayward, did you still have a question to ask?
No, I was actually going to say thank you to James Walters and the Public Affairs for coming up with a new cover for this wonderful document that we all have to read as a financial statement and trying to understand it. So I just want to appreciate it. I appreciate the auditing firm, and when we had our meeting, going through the things that we needed to and explaining those things and just giving us what we needed to be able to say that we have a clean audit. So I truly appreciate that, and I appreciate your department, James Walters, for putting everything together and having that meeting and explaining it. And so I just want to make a motion that we approve accepting the audit.
Okay, before we proceed with that motion, do we have a question by Councilmember Macaluso?
Yes, I do. Just real quick, appreciate the report. I'm glad that we got it. I just wish we could get this a little bit earlier, so when you ask if we have comments or questions, we actually have something to go off of, because I'm just going off of what your report is, but you know, it would be nice if we had a little bit of time to evaluate this so we can have more informed questions and comments. But you have something to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, if you have any questions over the financials or how they worked or why the numbers a certain way, even if after this, please reach out to us, and we'll be happy to walk you through what's actually in there. And as Steve and Jeremy mentioned, what the report actually is them coming in and making sure we're following all the rules and with handling the money. They don't change what's in the report. They're not saying We're doing good, we're doing bad, the numbers are what they are, and if you have any questions, you can always come and ask us, and we'll.
And that would be extended to members of the community that maybe need help working through some of these documents as well.
My only question is on the unassigned portion of the general fund. I know it's up to 17 million. Is that was largely due to the increase in the sales tax that we received at the end of last year?
Sales taxes are.
24 million.
And what's that?
Oh, the unassigned, I'm sorry.
No, so let's say if it was a more normal sales tax collection period, could you have a number in your head of where we would have been without that?
Yeah, sales tax, if you looked at the over-under on the page, about $5 million over on the sales taxes. We were $2 million under on the expenses. So you could take $5 million off of that.
Okay, so around 12.
You would have been closer to around 12.
Okay, more in line with kind of where we were. Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, and I already have a motion by Councilmember Hayward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Councilmember Watson. Can I get council members to cast your votes? Can I get the votes published, please? All right, having 7 yeas, no nays, motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to item number 8, which will involve a public hearing on ordinance 26M-009, conduct a public hearing to consider amending Chapter 90, Article 5, Water and Wastewater Capital Recovery Fees, Section 90-155 Appeals.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian James, Deputy City Manager for the City of Schertz. I'll try to be fairly brief, as I often am not fairly brief. But as council may remember, about a year ago, we updated our basically water and sewer impact fees, as we're required to do every number of years by state law. And again, as we see over time costs increase, what that means is our impact fees go up with it. And that has an impact on building and development in the community, because the costs to build and develop in Schertz go up to basically pay for the water and sewer infrastructure need that development creates. And so it's to have development pay for the infrastructure that they need with regard to water and sewer. Typically in the past, what we've done is we've done a phased-in approach. So when we do these studies and we take the ordinance to council, we normally lay out to increase those fees over a period of time to let developers kind of take that into account and better plan for it. This last year, what we had happen is, at the time we were doing that, the legislature was considering a bill, Senate Bill 1883, that as it was worded at the time would have prevented us from phasing in impact fees like we typically had. Basically, it said once you adopted them, you were stuck with those for a number of years, and that proved problematic. We reached out to the senator whose bill that was, but didn't get the impression they were going to change it. And so the gist of it was, when we came to you on April 1st and said, hey, we need to update the impact fees, because of those factors, it was agreed to go with a shorter phase-in for that. Essentially, what we said is that this new impact fee would apply to all plats filed after June 1st, just a couple of months, and that new fee would go into effect a month later on July 1st. And that seemed to work fairly well. As we looked at things and we worked with folks, we kind of, when we do this, we know the developers who are in process trying to pull building permits or file plats, and we work with them and kind of remind them, hey, you need to move this thing along, otherwise you get hit with a higher fee. And so it generally works fairly well. But this time, again, it was a bit of a different process because of the legislature and some of the changes we made, even to move up that phase-in date. What we've had happen, frankly, is a developer who came back and said, hey, you guys didn't really make this clear to us, we feel. Here are the things that we had in process, and if we had known that, we could have pushed to get our stuff through. It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem consistent with the city's core values to make us pay this, because in fact, in their situation, and we sort of wrote this into the draft bill, A good portion of their property was already platted, and it would have, in fact, if they hadn't replatted, paid at a much lower rate. They had come in and done an agreement with the city, one subdivision improvement agreement to defer some of the public improvements. They were in process with us talking about another subdivision improvement agreement for a sewer line improvement. And so and when we went back and looked at it, it seemed fair that, yeah, if they had known this, they could have said, oh, well, if we know that implication, let us rush this thing through, let us move it through because we're already in process and get there. And so while we haven't had others come in looking at it, it made sense to put in a provision that allows for an appeal based on some of those factors that we have going. We don't think we have a lot of them, right? But we put some language in to account for somebody else that may hit us with this, particularly that references some of the factors. So again, it's a replat for all of the portion of the property. They were in process with applications and likely could have made the effective date. Again, I don't think we're going to see the floodgates open on this, but we've gone back and looked at the folks who were in process. We'll reach out to a couple of them and just make them aware that we did this. But that's what we're asking for you tonight, is to put in this appeal process for that fee. We think it'll be very, very limited use. And then again, when we come back with roadway impact fees this fall, again, this just applies to water and sewer. We'll likely go back to more of our typical model based on the state law to phase in. So with that, I'll be quiet and answer questions.
Okay, well, before we do that, I'll go ahead and open it up for a public hearing at 7:26. For those who wish to speak on this topic, please state your name and address, and you'll be given 3 minutes to speak. Going once, going twice. We'll close the public hearing at 7:26 with nobody speaking. On behalf of Ordinance 26-M-009, council members, do y'all have any questions? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion made by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Councilmember Westbrook. Can I get council to cast the votes? Can I get the votes published, please? All right, having 7 yeas, no nays, motion passes. At this time, we're going to go ahead and go in closed session at 7:27. Okay, we're going to go ahead and come out of executive session at 8:07. So so there was no action to be taken on item 10, on item number 9, that refers to item number 9. So we're going to go ahead and move on to item 11 and 12, and there'll be no discussion to occur on those two items. So we'll move forward with requests and announcements, requests by mayor and council members for updates or information from staff. Any council members requesting any updates from staff?
Yes.
Okay.
Just wanted to ask about the memorial for Councilmember Tim Brown.
Yes, thank you. And I did have an update. We're really close to sending it out, but we do have a draft of what we intend to do, and we're going to run it by council.
I think we're putting it on a written update.
For the, yes. So it'll be in the written update of the next council meeting, the section of the information only.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, any other updates from council? Okay, the only request that I'd like to make is I'd like to see what we could do to get Mayor Gutierrez's picture on the wall. So whatever we can do to move these pictures and make those look good, so that way we can recognize him for his time served here, so.
When are we going to get a, last meeting what did you request last meeting, Councilmember Watson?
The traffic for 1103, for the ordinance, so we can go through the ordinance and have a discussion in regards to fees or any impacts to companies in regards to the railroad.
I,
1103, or Schertz Parkway, I'm sorry, Schertz Parkway and Main Street.
Relative to the 399 overpass.
Yes, but specifically for Schertz Parkway, because of the 18-wheelers over the, yes. Okay, I have an email, you know, I'll give you a presentation all day long about it, yes. Okay.
Yeah, and I think going forward, we really do need to take a hard look on what we can do with our railroad crossings, especially on First Street and Schertz Parkway, because the signs that are currently up there, they're amongst other signs that could be very easily overlooked, so they don't really stand out. And they're also yellow and black, which just an indication of warning, right, that you can get hung up on the railroad trestle. It doesn't say that you're not to go across the railroad trestle. So I'd like to see what we can do to get something up that's pretty much states that they're not to go across the railroad trestle for the reason of being able to of getting high centered on the railroad trestle. And when you come across, when you come onto Schertz Parkway from 78, as soon as you go over the railroad tracks, there's a sign that says no heavy trucks allowed. Well, it's kind of too late, you're already on it. So I was wondering if we can do something to post right before they even attempt to get on to Schertz Parkway from 78.
Yeah, that would be the fines that I was interested in as well.
Yeah, so if we can come up with something that even like some lit signs that kind of grabs people's attention, things like that, I think would work.
I think, Mayor, the reason why I asked is I didn't know if there was a request about the water issue. We addressed something
I have not yet.
about, we sort of tabled it. We passed the resolution, and then I think we were going to address the second portion of it. No, or at the end of last meeting?
Well, I think you're talking about what was discussed in the executive session?
Yeah, but we had to pass a resolution, and then I thought there was another motion to, like later in the meeting, to bring something back, to bring, have another discussion about the second portion of it. I don't
recall that, but we can go back and look. We do intend to discuss what we, in further detail relative to the structure of our water and sewer systems to give a deeper explanation of what we had a discussion in executive session about and map that out. And we'll walk through all of that in our pre-planning, our budget pre-planning retreat at the end of this month.
Can I get do you have a copy of the agreement and our contract with all of the landowners in their water leasing? Whatever contract you have with the landowners in terms of their water rights, that's what I'm looking for.
We have two things. Let me try here and see if I'm not mistaken. So I think, as Steve said, we're going to do kind of a 101 at the budget retreat on water and sewer service, how it gets provided, where we get our water, where our sewer goes going forward. And then we're also going to come back more specifically to talk about the status of CVLGC in the future, and that's where we're going to cover what CVLGC is, what assets they have, what our options are as sort of a separate we talked about.
Well, I still would like to sort of see the terminology and the language used for the contract and the agreement with the landowners in terms of water rights. So email is fine, or email it to the whole council, but I don't want to receive it at the last minute.
We can provide copies of the leases, the ground leases that go with CVLGC.
Correct.
That's what you want? We can provide that.
As long as they're generally the same. They're generally the same.
All right, moving on. Any other questions?
Have something to place on the agenda.
Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to have a discussion in regards to the current impact fees and alternative options. And I'll follow it with the email in specific questions that I have and other opportunities that may be available.
Okay, now moving on to city and community events attended or to be attended. Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Nothing tonight, sir.
Nothing tonight.
Yes, just real quick, was able to go to the Kick Cancer. That was a good time, and we had an interview committee meeting. But also, you saw these handouts that Laura gave. I'm asking for every council member's support in trying to help with this. We have a special event planned, and we really need some participation from our companies and people in the community. And so if you can help with getting sponsorships, it'd go a long way for us to put on something special.
And it's been requested that we email that out to the council, and we'll be happy to do that.
Just attended the council run.
Northeast Partnership luncheon.
I attended the Smoothie King on last Friday. It was great. It was a great event, and that's where I injured my foot. But at any rate, I did the audit committee and the interview committee, and everything went well. That's all.
Did the Northeast Partnership Luncheon and the SUSID Fellowship Board.
Okay, and I was pretty busy. I attended the Guadalupe County Mayor's meeting. Also attended the TML midterm year conference. Also went to Kick the Cancer pep rally and 5K. And also went to the Rotary Club meeting and the NEP luncheon and the chamber luncheon today. So having no other items, we'll go ahead and adjourn at 8:16.